My new neighbor might just be Satan. For as long as I can remember, my family has always lived in and around Innsbruck. This peaceful little suburb outside of Richmond has a lot of history and charm. With a population less than 10,000, this is a place where you are only a degree or two of separation away from anyone else in this town. That old adage rings true here. Everyone knows everyone. My husband, our 2 adopted children, and myself lived in a 2-story colonial, red brick, white trim, having a well-manicured and maintained yard near Cox Road, one of the 2 main roads that went through the small slice of heaven. While it is rare for any homes to come up for sale, the family across the street from us moved due to work relocation and a higher salary. And this housing market and the desirable location that this is of single-family homes far enough away from the crazy city, but close enough to be connected. Once the Marshes put their home up for sale, it sold in less than a week. In no time, a large moving truck pulled up and began filling the empty house, making it a home for the new owner. My husband Sam was working on site at his office today, and I happened to be taking the week off from my stressful consulting job, being the friendly across the street neighbor. I baked up a dozen chocolate cookies to take over to introduce myself. As I approached the house, I could see 4 individuals wearing Nightfall Transit shirts, a company I had not heard of before. I approached one of them. He was tall, had dark red hair, looking like he could use a little bit of sunlight. Interesting company name you work for. The mover stops and acknowledges my presence. Absolutely, it is a small family-owned business, named for the fact that day or night, we are here to perform. Some individuals need to move at the drop of a dime, could be at 8 in the morning or 11 at night. He smiles. It feels unnatural. The teeth look a little bit too white, the smile a little too wide. Here, a couple of our business cards. My name is Amon Alucard Crowley, owner of Nightfall. If you ever require effective, fast and easy moving solutions, reach out to us at any time, day or night. While the other 3 movers continued moving furniture in the boxes from the back of the truck, Amon locked eyes with me, reaching out a slender, long hand. His eyes rippled, looking to be deep crimson. That couldn't be right, as that's not a natural color. What an odd color for contacts, I thought to myself as I reached out with my free hand and grasped his hand. It feels cold to the touch. Not too strange as it is a bit chilly out for a late winter afternoon. After letting go, I take the business cards and pocket them. Feeling a bit uneasy, I quickly divert attention to the plate of cookies. Are the new owners here already? I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself and bring a welcome gift. Amon shakes his head. Unfortunately not. Mr. Mortimer Ashcroft has not arrived yet, though he did provide explicit permission and instruction to deliver and set up his belongings whether he was here or not. Amon turns and starts making his way back to the truck so that he can get back to work. I am sure that Mr. Ashcroft would not be bothered if you were to leave your gift on his kitchen table. Yeah, okay, that sounds good. I think I will do just that. Thank you. I excused myself from the moving crew and walked up the few steps to the front door. I stepped inside and a certain indescribable heaviness sets on my shoulders. The air felt thick, dark even, considering the windows were wide open without any curtains set up yet. I can see the kitchen from the front door, thanks to the open floor plan, and take a few steps across the living room. A feeling of being watched stops me in my tracks. There's no one inside here. I'm not even telling me that the owner's not here yet. I look around, a dark, unlit hallway to one side, an open staircase on the other. A shift in movement in the corner of my eye catches my attention, and I look up to the upstairs landing. Nothing is there. Must have just been a shift in the light from a cloud crossing the sun or something. I shiver with a bit of paranoia and quickly walk into the kitchen, placing the plate of cookies down on the dark granite countertop on the kitchen island, seeing a small pad of paper and pen on the ornate mahogany table just about 10 feet away. I wrote a quick note with my name and phone number on it, welcoming the Ashcroft family to the neighborhood. I haphazardly placed the piece of paper on the top of the saran wrap covered baked lights and started to beeline towards the front door to make my exit. 2 of the movers carried an unimpressively large frame painting, making me pause to allow them in and pass me. The artwork was impressive to say the least. It looked to be quite old, with deep, dark hues of blue on the edges, with a portrait of a very charismatic male figure. I am no history buff, but based on the styling of the subject, he looked to be a middle-aged man from the 1600s. Must be a family heirloom passed down through the generations, I thought to myself. Once the pathway was clear and the team of movers were busy at work hanging this huge painting, I stepped out the front door and quickly made my way across the street back into the safety of my own home. Dark gray clouds began rolling in, so I made myself a hot cup of black tea and got lost in some relaxation time. I forgot entirely about the feeling of being watched and the strange ambience that was inside of the Ashcroft home across the street. Nested in my comfortable armchair by the stone fireplace, the kids got home from school first. Our daughters, Beth and Nomi, came into the family room where I was lost in my book, giving me a kiss on my cheek and excitedly filling me in on their school playground gossip. By the time I was done hearing all about the drama about Jill's bloody nose and Mary being expelled from the circle because she also has a crush on Will that Jasmine already likes, my husband Sam pulled into the driveway, saved by my husband. Since it was Friday, Sam and I decided to order a pizza from one of our favorite Italian restaurants, Mamma Cucina. We had it delivered through DoorDash, and we settled in front of the television to decide on what movie to watch together that is appropriate for an 11 and 9-year-old. We settled on that newer Disney Pixar flick, Elemental. Shortly after the opening credits displayed on the tube and the movie got started, I was alerted that our unhealthy but delicious pizza has arrived by the chime of the doorbell. I volunteered to retrieve the pizza for our movie, tossing the blanket covering my legs to the side and hightailed it to the front door. I opened the door and retrieved the box from the delivery driver, thanking them, and began closing the door. Before I could latch the door closed, a flash of dull red caught my attention. I looked past the dasher, making their way back to their car, and noticed that the moving truck was gone, and now a midnight black Rolls-Royce Phantom was parked in the driveway, and an odd, deep red glow was spilling out of the front windows. I stared for a minute, seeing if my eyes would adjust to see inside, trying to understand what was happening. I decided it was best to mind my own business, closing the door and taking dinner into the family room to watch the movie. After the movie ended and the kids retired to their rooms for the night, Sam and I got to have some quality time to ourselves. He filled me in about a big project that his boss assigned to him, a new potential client that would be bringing in big dollars to the firm. His boss had alluded that if Sam was successful in wrangling this client, that it would lead to a promotion and a raise. He finished getting changed into his pajamas. "How was your day, Theo? Have you seen our new neighbors yet?" I shook my head. My smile melted into a more stoked look. "No, I haven't." I baked a tray of cookies and took it over there, hoping to meet them, but they weren't there yet. The mover said that the last name is Ashcroft. I left a plate of cookies and I know welcoming them into the neighborhood. It looks like they've since arrived. When the pizza arrived, there was a car parked into the driveway and looked like some of the lights were on inside of the house. Maybe we can catch them tomorrow. Hopefully they are nice. Maybe they have some kids Nomi and Beth's age so that they can have some new friends. As if they need some more. Sam grinned wide, his sarcastic nature always peeking through. Exactly what we need, Sam. More kids coming into our house, emptying our pantry and making messes. I started to chuckle a bit, getting under the comforter and making myself cozy. We got settled into bed and I turned the lights off. Before closing my eyes, I noticed that the soft red glow I noticed coming out of the windows across the street was bleeding into our bedroom. I stretched my legs out, laid on my side, and closed my eyes, falling into a deep sleep. I opened my eyes suddenly and sat up with a feeling of dread and panic. A flash of lightning followed by a rumble of thunder quickly illuminated the bedroom. I noticed Sam was not in bed, just me. With my senses heightened, I sat and listened, trying to allow time for my eyes to adjust to the dark. A chilling breeze drafts across my back, followed by what sounded like muffled crying. "Sam?" I called out. "Are you alright?" The bedroom door creaks open, a dull red glow pulsing from the hallway. I slipped my feet into my slippers and wrapped my fleece robe around myself to counteract the freezing air that was invading our home. I hear the quiet sobbing turn into borderline wailing. I walked to the doorway and peeked my head out, looking both left and right down the hallway corridors. "Sam, where are you? What's wrong?" To me it looks as though the hallway stretches out, with the dim crimson illumination only being bright enough for me to see about 20 to 30 feet ahead of me, then pitch darkness. While this should have stood out as odd to me, seeing as the hallways in our house are not that long, I was determined to find Sam and help him out. I hear the sobbing again. It sounds as though it is coming from the right, so I started softly walking to the right of him. This direction is where the kids' rooms are. Why would he be in either Beth or Nomi's room? As I make my room down the passageway, sand green colored light throbs in and out. Finally, after what feels like 10 solid minutes of walking, I can see the doors to both Beth and Nomi's chambers. Their rooms are positioned at the end of the hallway. Nomi's on the left and Beth's on the right, with a third wall with a picture window to look out into the side yard. Perched underneath the console table that sits in front of and underneath the window, I can see a very pale, gangly person curled up in a fetal position. their chests heaving in and out like they are hyperventilating. I can't make out who it is. It doesn't look like anyone in our family. I approach the figure, kneeling down and reaching out to touch them on their shoulder. Before my fingertips connect with their body, the creature whips itself around and positions itself on its knees, getting right in front of my face and screams an ear-shattering scream. This creature is as white as a ghost, no eyes. As its face elongates to scream, the skin breaks apart from where a mouth should be, tearing holes that open up into a pitch-black void in its alabaster skin. I stumble backwards in surprise, catching myself and standing up. As I get to turn around, I am now in our older daughter Nomi's room, only the bed and bedside table illuminated. Nomi is laying in bed, looking perfect like a porcelain doll, and Sam is on his knees at the other side of her bed. He is bent over, head laying on the bed next to her, bawling. Sam, what is happening? In between racking sobs, he responds with a very scratchy sounding voice. You did this. You brought this into our house, into our family. Sam grabs a handful of the blanket covering Nomi, squeezing it in anguish. I don't know what you're talking about. What did I do? What did I bring? Before I could finish asking, Sam bolted rigid straight. He sat there, still and silent for about 5 seconds before bending straight back. The sound of bones popping making my stomach crawl. You did this! You did this! You did this! You did this! Sam kept shrieking over and over again, his eyes rolling into the back of his head. The only thing that I could see was the white of his eyes. Blood began steaming out of his nose, ears, and mouth. I reached up and clasped my hands over my ears, turning around to exit the room. I found myself now standing in front of a fireplace with a dramatic high-backed velvet chair. In the blink of an eye, the pier inside ignited to life. The radiant warmth felt nice, casting shadows from the chair and myself across the floor. I took a step closer to the fire, trying to peek around the back of the chair to see who, if anyone, was sitting in it. I was startled by a deep, smooth voice. What is the one thing in this world that you want the most? I don't know what you mean, I responded. Whatever you want most can be yours. You know what you need to do, the mysterious voice stated. I walked forward and looked over the side of the chair, met by the shrieking, blood-oozing face of Sam, mere inches from my own. You did this! I awoke terrified, drenched in a cold sweat, heart pounding. It was still dark out. I grabbed my phone and looked at it to see what time it was. 3:13 a.m. Talked myself down, realizing it was just a nightmare. I laid myself back down, trying to get more sleep, which ended up being a big failure. After another few hours, I resigned myself to being tired through the day, getting out of bed and making a coffee for Sam and myself. He and the kids stumbled into the kitchen over the next hour and a half. They were bright and rested, myself being quiet and reserved, still admittedly shaken from the nightmare. The kids stomached a small breakfast, then disappeared to the family room to play, keeping themselves occupied for a while. Sam asked me, Theo, what's wrong? You look like you'd seen a ghost. Taking the opportunity, I explained my nightmare to him. Sam wrapped an arm around me, giving me a side hug. He made the effort to comfort me. He gets me distracted from thinking about it, suggesting we should get dressed and go across the street to meet our new neighbors. I get out of my nightclothes and change into some more casual jeans and a hoodie. Together we slip out the front door, walk down our driveway, and start crossing the street. Before we reach the other side, a man opens the door and comes outside, waving and greeting us. Good morning, gentlemen. I am Mort Ashcroft. I stopped dead in my tracks, as his voice matches the one I heard in my nightmare before Sam popped around the side of the chair, screaming into my face. He meets us at the end of the driveway, extending out his hand. Sam reaches out and takes it. I can't help but stare in a surreal disbelief. I take in details of Mort's stature. Tall. He had to have stood at 6'6", salt and pepper hair, very strong facial bone structure. He was as pale as paper with piercing emerald eyes, time dilated. I can see Sam's mouth moving very slowly. No sound coming from his direction as their clasped hands move at a snail's pace up and down. I hear Mort's voice in my head. What is the one thing in the world that you want the most? I am immediately snapped out of my vague state as their hands detach and I hear Sam introduce me. And this is my husband Theo. We're the Du Bois. I pull myself together and act as normal as possible, reaching out my hand and exchange greetings with Mort. Yes, I am Theo, and we have 2 girls, Beth and Nomi, who are wasting their Saturday on television. Do you have any kids, Mr. Ashcroft? I inquire, keeping the conversation and momentum going. Regrettably not. It is just myself. Maybe one day though. I hope to be around for a while longer. Only time will tell. Would you please come in for a moment? I have a pitcher of mimosas ready to enjoy. and your devilishly wonderful cookies you left yesterday. Mort gestures to his front door. A perfectly pearly smile adorns his charismatic face. Sam accepts the invitation for the both of us and begins walking up the driveway to Mr. Ashcroft's door. I am left behind, still not sure I know what is reality anymore. Am I dreaming? I don't think so. I pinch myself and come to the conclusion that I am very much awake. I must be letting my imagination run wild. So to be polite, I follow Sam and Mort into the home. Mort Ashcroft is an entirely charming individual, throwing out jokes at the appropriate times while being a splendid host with refreshments. We drink through a pitcher of mimosas and finish the cookies before we are interrupted by a shrill scream coming from our house. The girls. I immediately get up and look out of the front window. Beth is out front screaming her head off, pointing us out of the house. Sam and I bolt out of Mort's house and get to her in a flash. She is to the point of hyperventilating, relaying to us that her and Naomi saw a snake in the house. Okay, yeah, this is alarming, but I thought so much worse could have happened. We thank Mr. Ashcroft for being so hospitable and excuse ourselves to take care of the home. He heads back into his own house, waving courteously as he enters his own house and closes the front door. Sam and I enter our own home, find, catch, and remove the snake out into the yard. Strange enough that it is out in the middle of the cold season, but weirder things have happened. The rest of the day went fairly routine for a Saturday. Sam made a succulent roast which I had to tease him and say it was dry. The kids went to their rooms to talk to and text their friends about their weekend homework. Nighttime came, and slumber took over the neighborhood. I am awakened to a familiar sounding voice. You can have your deepest desire for a small cost. My eyes popped open. I immediately recognized that I was not in our bed. I was laying on the floor in the living room in front of a couch. I sit up, looking for the source of the voice that had awakened me. It sounded too real, my rattled brain taking a moment to realize that I am not in bed, where I fell asleep. I heard the sound of glass breaking, making me stand up quickly. I notice in my rigid position the symbol that I was laying on. A flash of lightning illuminates the room. I'm quickly made aware that the symbol is everywhere, on the walls, all over the floor, on the furniture even. It looks and smells like it was drawn in blood of some sort. As the light dies out from the lighting, 5 candles erupt into flame, positioned around the symbol I happen to be standing in the middle of. I hear Beth shriek an ear-shattering scream in dad mode. I bolt out of the living room and push my way into Beth's room. I met with an office space. Dramatic blood-red curtains frame a large picture window with an oversized oak desk in front of it. Mort Ashcroft sat in a chair on the other side of the desk away from me, motioning for me to take a seat in the vacant seat. Where is Beth? Mort chuckles. Worry not. She is safe and sound, asleep like a little babe. She is merely having a bad dream. That is why she screamed out. Why are you here in her room? I choked out, tears starting to fill my eyes. Mort stares into my soul, his poker face unnerving. He blinks, his eyes changing from a bright violet into a matching blood red to the curtains. You did this. You have a desire. I have an answer. It is a simple quid pro quo, nothing more, nothing less. What did I do? I lose my control, screaming out. I want to jump over the desk and start shaking Mort. I started shaking. I decided to slump down into the chair right next to me. A condescending yet wicked-looking smile crosses his face. Well, that's the 100,000 question, isn't it? You were a good neighbor. You were. You got my attention, which is fortunate for you. Unfortunate for someone else. Mr. Ashcroft reaches his hand into his jacket pocket and pulls out a black remote control. He presses a button and the floor opens. Howls and screams fill the room, making me sick to my stomach. A wave of heat hits me in the face as I realize that I am looking to a pit to hell. Flames lick up into the air from the pit. I'm able to make out tortured faces in the flames. I can even start hearing individual pleas for help. You're dying, Mr. Du Bois. You know it, but you haven't told anyone in your family yet. You're afraid that this is where you will end up, which I do say, the chances are looking mighty good. So many skeletons in your closet. He snaps his fingers. The hole in the ground closes up with the sound of an earthquake. I know what you want already. You just have to ask for it. I feel a hand on my shoulder, turning my head. I'm shaken to see Beth standing there. Her eyes are missing, mouth sewn shut, and her chest a hollow cavity with the ribs cracked open and spread out. Boils and blisters covered her skin and half of her hair is singed off. I wake up in reality. I am standing in Naomi's room, right at the side of her bed. My nose started to bleed. I could feel the warm moisture dripping down my face and soaking the front of my pajamas. I collapse, and everything blacks out. I wake up in a hospital bed, Sam half asleep in the chair beside me. I groan as I try to move. I definitely must have bruised something as my body is sore. Sam realizes that I am alert, so he stands up and comes over to the bed and gives me a big hug. What were you doing in Nomi's room at 3 in the morning, Theo? You woke us all up. You scared us all. I told him I must have started sleepwalking, that I came into her room and then immediately collapsed. I apologized profusely, not wanting to scare him or my family. That's why I haven't told any of them about the terminal diagnosis of my pancreatic cancer. The doctor came in while we were embracing each other, asking me several questions of my symptoms and what led up to me being here at St. Macy's. After I explained to her my story, she ordered a CT scan in my brain, just to make sure nothing was off, and a panel of blood work. A few hours later, she came back and sat down, announcing she had some news. The cat was out of the bag now, and she announced that the cancer had spread to my brain. Sam learned that the cancer was terminal, and that I was looking at only a year, maybe 2 left to live. Both of us beside ourselves in tears. We discussed addressing this with our kids, and how we were going to proceed the rest of our lives together. Shortly thereafter, I got discharged and sent home. By this point, it was already getting late, so we picked up some fast food to take home to the kids for dinner. As neither of us had the energy to prepare anything for them today after that bombshell, Sam had his emotions get the best of him, started screaming at me, wondering how I knew and didn't trust him enough to tell him. Were you just waiting to drop dead for me to find out? He asked. Well, no. I just didn't know when would be the right time or even how. I began answering. He cut me off, going hysterical. When you found out would be the right time. The screaming went on for what felt like forever. We decided that I would sleep on the couch that night, just to give us some healthy space to process feelings. Even though he was hurt, he still told me he loved me before locking himself in our bedroom. I could hear him sobbing from our room. After a couple of hours of laying there, stuck in my own thoughts, I fell asleep. My eyes opened, and I was inside Moore Ashcroft's living room. The sun was out, birds were chirping, everything felt phenomenal. Saw a serving tray with 2 mimosas on it, so I walked over and grabbed one. I found a seat on a very comfortable leather sofa. I take a sip of my mimosa, and I hear, "Are you ready to ask for what you desire the most?" I look around and see Mort. "Up here," the voice chimes in again. I look up and notice the Rego painting I saw when the movers were unloading the truck. My eyes widen with fear as the painting was what was talking to me. "This will be your last chance to ask. After my 3rd attempt, I don't bother anymore," it said, the colors on the canvas swirling in a hypnotic fashion. It was captivating but intimidating. "I don't know. I mean, yes, I do know, but I don't," I managed to stammer out. "Would it be easier if you said it to me instead of myself?" A voice to my left filled my ears. I looked over and saw Mort sitting right next to me, still feeling the watchful glare of the painting. "Either way you are talking to me, that painting is just a little something I had commissioned by a certain Leonardo da Vinci. I may be old, but I'm still proud of how I aged so well." "Wait, are you..." My mind couldn't think of the word I was actually thinking. Instead, what came out was, "an angel." He looked side to side as if anyone was here with us, listening, then smiles and responds, something like that. "What do you want?" I started crying, knowing my time is limited. "I don't want to die. I want to live. I have cancer and they are only giving me..." Mort raised his hand, stopping me from going into a rambling tirade. "You want to beat cancer. You want to live. Well, I can give that to you, for a small cost. Nothing is free, Mr. Dubois." "What does it cost?" I managed to get out, wiping the tears from my eyes, feeling a little bit of hope. "Don't worry, Mr. Dubois. You have paid for your desire while we have been talking here. You paid in your sleep. Isn't that wonderful?" He grins, reaching out his hand to shake mine. I reluctantly reach out and take his hand, a moment of hesitation taking me over in the last second. To pay for it, I just had to sleep? "Absolutely, Mr. Dubois. Now when you wake up, you will be cancer-free. Congratulations and welcome to the rest of your life." He stood up and walked to his doorway. He opened the door and motioned for me to exit. "Now, if you will excuse me, I don't mean to be rude, but I happen to have another engagement to take care of this day." I gather myself, get up and walk out of his house. I'm surrounded by bright, warm sunlight. It feels amazing on my skin. I hear the door close behind me. I turn around. It has been a week since I woke up in our room. I was standing by the side of the bed. Sam lay dead under my hands. I had strangled him to death. Blood was running out of his eyes from the pressure I had put on his throat. I screamed the most blood-curdling scream I could muster. I was covered in blood, with no recollection of what had happened. I saw the clock. The time was 3:30 a.m. I ran out of our room and saw that the girls' door bedrooms were open. I found Beth folded up in her closet, her eyes cut out and chest sliced open, an empty cavity gaping at me with her heart and lungs. making a trail of blood and gore from her bed to the closet. Naomi was in her bed, her throat slit, laying in a pool of her own blood. I grabbed the keys to my vehicle and got out of there with just my wallet and a pair of clothes. I needed to get my story out before they caught me. I need people to know the truth. I am not a killer. It was not me. It was something controlling my body while I slept. It has been 5 days since I left our home. I am in deep mourning, and have not decided if I should take my own life or take prison time. The story has been all over the news. Reports of police and state marshals looking for me. I called in a tip to the local police that I am hiding out in this seedy little motel outside of Philadelphia. I can see the lights coming down the road and hear the sirens. Please be careful of new neighbors. Sometimes they are not as quiet as they seem. It is 8:57, and we are getting reports that the suspect from the Dubois homicide case was apprehended in a no-tell motel north of Philadelphia. Police and sheriffs arrived shortly after 8 p.m. to Theo Dubois locked in one of the rooms at the Den of Iniquity. The reporter, a woman in her 40s, looking coiffed and caked with makeup to try to improve her appearance on HDTV, continued to recite. The suspect threatened to take his own life if his demands were not met. He went on to scream incoherent things about the devil and a man named Mort Ashcroft. Our affiliates in Virginia will continue looking into this, as this is new detail to the case. Allegedly, this Mr. Ashcroft just moved in across the street from the Dubois family and is being identified as a person of interest. As of now, there is no record of anyone purchasing the house in question, as it is still listed on the market. She turns her head to look at another camera before continuing the report. Theo Dubois did attempt to take his own life, using a firearm to shoot himself in the head. The suspect did survive, miraculously, and is expected to fully recover. Stay tuned with us at WDVL as this story continues to develop. She finished up before passing the torch to her co-anchor for the next story of the night. With a sinister chuckle, Mort turns off the television that is mounted in his new home, as he sees his new neighbors walking up the driveway to introduce themselves in a warm, tropical Miami suburb.